My father rejected me my whole life and paid everything for his stepdaughters, but when I got married without him, he called saying he was proud, and I showed him it was already too late. I'm 27 years old. I work in digital marketing, and a few months ago, I got married without my father present. And I know how that sounds. Like, wow, how dramatic. But the truth is, that decision was the result of a lifetime of feeling invisible to him. And I need to tell this story because there are still people who tell me I should have invited him, that he's my father after all, and they just don't get it. I guess I should start at the beginning. When I was a kid and my dad, William, was basically a ghost who lived in the same house as us. He wasn't the type of absent father who's always working and never home. No. He was there physically, sitting in his armchair watching TV or in his office with the door closed. But emotionally, it was like we didn't exist to him. You know what I mean? My sister, Nicole, and I grew up walking on eggshells in our own house. Trying not to bother Dad, not to make too much noise, not to ask for his attention, because every time we did, it was like we were a burden to him. I remember once, I was like 8 years old or something. I won an award at school for an essay I wrote, and I was so excited to tell my dad. And when he got home, I ran to him with my certificate in my hand, and he barely looked at it, said something like, "Oh, that's nice," and kept walking to his office. My mom had to explain to me later that Dad was tired from work, but that was always the excuse. He was always tired, always busy, always the wrong time. Nicole was 2 years older than me, and I think she processed it differently. Like she became quieter, more compliant, constantly trying to be the perfect daughter to see if that way he'd pay attention to us. But I became more, bitter, I guess. From a young age, I already felt that anger of why did we have to try so hard for crumbs of his attention? And the worst part wasn't just the indifference. It was the constant criticism when he did pay attention to us. If we got good grades, it was because they weren't good enough. If we helped around the house, it was because we didn't do it right. If we tried to tell him about our day, it was because we talked too much. We basically couldn't win. And eventually, we stopped trying. My mom did what she could to compensate. She was loving and present and gave us all the attention Dad didn't give us. But it wasn't the same, because there was always that question in my head of why wasn't I enough for my own father? What was wrong with me that even he didn't love me? Things got worse when I was like 12, and my parents got divorced. At that moment, I thought, and I know it sounds silly now, but I honestly thought maybe things would get better. That maybe Dad would realize he was losing us and would make an effort to be more present. At first, it seemed like he would, He'd come pick us up every other weekend, like the custody agreement said, take us for ice cream or to the movies. Normal divorced dad stuff trying to compensate. But it was all so forced, so awkward, like he was fulfilling an obligation rather than enjoying time with his daughters. And little by little, the visits got more spaced out. First it was every other weekend, then it was once a month, then it was only birthdays and Christmas, and eventually not even that. When I was 15 and Nicole was 17, something happened that basically destroyed me completely at the time. Turns out my dad had gotten married again, and not to just anyone, but to a woman named Barbara who had 2 daughters, Charlotte and Amelia, who were like 14 and 12, basically our age. And the worst part, what really killed me, is that we found out by accident, like Nicole saw photos on Facebook of a wedding that Barbara's daughters had attended, all dressed as bridesmaids in beautiful pink dresses, and my dad there smiling happier than I'd ever seen him, and we didn't even know he was dating someone, much less that he was getting married. He invited her daughters, but not his own. Daughters? Can you believe it? When Nicole confronted him on the phone, he said something like, he didn't want to make us uncomfortable, that he thought it would be weird for us. A bunch of excuses that basically translated to he didn't care about us enough to include us in his new life. That was the first time we went completely no contact with him. We blocked his number, deleted him from social media. We just decided that if he didn't want us in his life, then we didn't want him in ours either. My mom supported us in that decision, although I know she was worried. But she understood. She had lived with him for years and knew what he was like, knew he wasn't going to change. And for a while, it was okay. I mean, not okay. But we focused on school, on our friends, on building a life without him. And it hurt, but at least we weren't constantly waiting for him to disappoint us again. Like 5 years passed like that. I went to college, got a decent job, met Jason, who is basically the love of my life and the most understanding and patient person that exists. And things were going well. like really well. Jason and I had been together for 3 years when he proposed. It was on a beach at sunset, super cliche but beautiful, and I obviously said yes. I was happy, excited, starting to plan the wedding, and then came that inevitable question of whether I was going to invite my dad. My mom told me it was my decision, that she'd support me in whatever I decided. Nicole said she wouldn't judge if I wanted to give him a chance, and Jason just hugged me and said to do what felt right. And I honestly didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to have my dad there, walk arm in arm with him, have that father-daughter moment you see in all the movies. But another part of me, the part that had been hurt so many times, told me it wasn't worth the risk. Eventually, like 6 months before the wedding, I decided to unblock him on Facebook. I don't know. I guess I wanted to see how he was, what he'd been doing all these years, if maybe he had changed. And what I saw destroyed me in a way I didn't expect. Like I thought I was already healed from all that, but clearly I wasn't. His profile was full. And when I say full, I mean absolutely packed with photos with Barbara and her daughters. Photos of vacations at Disneyland, at the beach, in Europe, expensive places. We never went with him because he always said he didn't have money. Photos of graduations, birthdays with huge parties, of Charlotte and Amelia receiving expensive gifts, new cars when they turned 16, computers, jewelry, things we never received. There was a post where he wrote something like, "So proud of my girls for getting into college," and I stared at that phrase, "my girls," and thought, but what are we then? The worst came when I started reading the older posts more carefully. Turns out my dad had paid for Charlotte and Amelia's entire college education. Both went to super expensive private universities, and he bragged on Facebook about how he was happy to be able to give them that opportunity. When Nicole and I asked him for help with college, he told us he couldn't, that he could barely survive after the divorce, and we went into debt with student loans that I'm still paying. We worked part-time while studying, juggled finances, and this man was paying for his stepdaughter's $60,000 a year universities. The betrayal I felt in that moment was indescribable, like I sat in front of the computer crying for hours. And Jason found me like that, and didn't know how to comfort me because this was a level of rejection he couldn't understand. His family was normal, his parents loved him, he never had to wonder if he was enough. But wait, because I'm not done yet. There's more. I kept checking his Facebook like a masochist, and I found photos of Charlotte wearing a necklace I recognized immediately. It was my grandmother's necklace, my dad's mom, an antique pearl necklace she had promised me when I was like 10 years old. She showed it to me and told me that someday it would be mine, because I was her first granddaughter. My grandmother died when I was 13, shortly after the divorce, and I never knew what happened to the necklace. I assumed my dad kept it or something. But no, he gave it to Charlotte, a girl who wasn't even his blood, who had no connection to my grandmother, and me who grew up going to my grandmother's house every Sunday. Me, who was her actual granddaughter, got nothing. I called Nicole crying and told her everything I had seen, and she admitted that she had also unblocked him a few months ago and had seen the same thing, but didn't want to tell me because she knew it would hurt me. She told me she had already made peace with the fact that our dad just didn't love us the same way, that she had decided it was his loss, but I couldn't accept it that easily. I was furious, hurt, confused, all the emotions at the same time. And what pushed me to the limit was that I saw a post of a huge birthday party my dad had thrown for Charlotte and Amelia, with balloons and decorations and a table full of gifts, and the date was 2 days after my 26th birthday, which he hadn't even wished me. Not a text, not a call, nothing. But 2 days later, he's throwing money around for his stepdaughters. I decided to write him a letter. I don't know. I guess I needed to tell him everything I had kept in for years. All the times I felt rejected. All the times I wondered what was wrong with me. All the pain it caused me to see him be the father with other girls he never was with us. I wrote him like 5 pages. No filter, not softening anything, just all my truth. I told him I had unblocked him, hoping maybe to see that he had changed, that he missed us, that he regretted how he treated us. But instead, I saw he had been the father we always wanted him to be, just with other girls. I asked him what they had that we didn't have. Why they deserved his love and his time and his money, and we didn't. I told him that Grandma's necklace should have been mine, that the college he paid for them should have been for us too, that those vacations and parties and moments should have been with his own daughters. I ended the letter telling him I was getting married and that I was considering inviting him, but that after seeing everything I saw, I wasn't sure I wanted him there anymore. That I didn't want him to ruin the most important day of my life with his indifference, like he had ruined so many other moments. I waited for a response for weeks. I checked my email constantly. Every time my phone rang, I thought maybe it was him. Maybe he had read the letter and realized all the damage he had done to us and wanted to apologize. But no. What I got was an email from Barbara. Not from him, from his wife. Calling me ungrateful and saying I had no right to complain to my father. That he had done the best he could with us. That if we didn't have a good relationship, it was as much our fault as his. She said the necklace was from his family and he could give it to whoever he wanted. That college money was their private business. That vacations and parties were for his family. And that word, family, without including us, was like a slap. He didn't even have the guts to respond to me himself. He sent his wife to defend him. And that told me everything I needed to know. Like 3 months before the wedding, Nicole called me and said Dad had sent her a message asking about the wedding, saying he'd like to go if I invited him, that he was proud of me for finding someone who loved me. And I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Like now he's proud. Now he wants to be present. When it's all over. When we already grew up without him. When we already learned to live with the hole he left. Jason and I talked a lot about that. He told me he'd respect whatever decision I made, but that I had to think about what I really wanted, not what I was supposed to do. And after many sleepless nights, many conversations with my mom and Nicole, many tears, I decided no, I wasn't going to invite him. It was one of the hardest decisions of my life, because there was a part of me that still wanted my dad there, that still held on to that childish hope that maybe this would be the moment when everything changed. But the rational part of me knew nothing was going to change, that he'd probably arrive late or not arrive at all, or be there physically but emotionally absent like always, and I wasn't going to risk my perfect day for that. I sent him a short message, very simple, telling him I had decided to have a small wedding only with people who had been present in my life, and unfortunately, he wasn't one of those people. He didn't respond. My wedding day came and it was perfect. Like absolutely beautiful and perfect in a way I didn't expect. My mom walked me down the aisle. She raised me. She was there at every important moment. She earned that honor. And when I saw her waiting for me with tears in her eyes, I felt peace. I felt I had made the right decision. Jason was at the end of the aisle crying. My friends were there. Nicole was my maid of honor. And everything was exactly as it should be. There was no weird gap. There was no feeling that something was missing, because all the people I needed were there. During the ceremony, when the officiant spoke about the family we choose, I looked around and saw all the people who had loved me unconditionally, who had been there through thick and thin, and I realized that was my real family, not blood, not the last name, but the people who chose to love me. After the wedding, like the next day, Nicole called me and told me Dad had called her on the wedding day, that he told her he was proud of me, that he knew I had made the right decision not to invite him, that he understood why I did it, and I thought, well, at least he acknowledges that, but it wasn't enough either, you know? It wasn't the apology I needed. It wasn't the acknowledgement of the damage he had caused. It was just another empty phrase from a man who never learned to be a father. Nicole asked me if I regretted not inviting him, and I told her no, not one bit, that it had been the happiest day of my life precisely because he wasn't there to ruin it with his indifference. Like 3 months passed after the wedding when my aunt, my dad's sister, called to tell me he had some health problems. Nothing serious apparently, but enough for her to feel she should tell me. She asked if I was going to go visit him, or at least call him, and I honestly didn't know what to answer. I told her I'd think about it, but the truth is, I haven't done anything about it. Part of me feels guilty, like he's my father and he's sick, and maybe I should be there. But the bigger part of me, the part that's been hurt so many times, says I don't owe him anything. That he was never there for me, so why? Should I be there for him now? Jason says to do what makes me feel at peace, that there's no right answer, and my mom says the same thing, that it's my decision and no one can judge me for what I choose. Nicole went to see him a few weeks ago. She says he's the same, that he asked about me but didn't seem really interested, that it was more like a polite question than genuine concern, and that basically confirmed what I already knew, that he hasn't changed, that he's probably never going to change, and that I'm waiting for an apology or acknowledgement that's never going to come. I think what I finally understood, and it took me 27 years and a lot of therapy to get here, is that I can't keep waiting for my dad to give me the closure I need, that I can't keep waiting for him to become the father I always wanted him to be. The closure has to come from me. I have to give it to myself, and that's what I'm trying to do. Some days are easier than others. There are still moments when I see Jason with his dad, so close and loving, and I feel that pang of envy and sadness for what I never had. But each time it's less intense. Each time it hurts a little less. A few days ago, my mom was at the house and saw the wedding photos on the table, and she said something that stuck with me. She said she felt guilty for staying with my dad for so long, that maybe if she had divorced earlier, we wouldn't have suffered so much rejection, but that she also wondered if it would have been the same anyway, if my dad just didn't have the capacity to be the father we needed. And I told her it wasn't her fault, that she gave us all the love he didn't give us, multiplied by 10, that thanks to her, we know what it is to be loved unconditionally. And it's true. My mom saved us somehow. She showed us that our worth didn't depend on whether our dad saw us or not. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. If someday I'm going to have the conversation I need to have with my dad, I'm going to understand the damage he did to us. If I'm going to forgive him completely, or if there's always going to be that part of me that's broken from his rejection. What I do know is that I'm not waiting anymore. I'm not putting my life on hold waiting for him to change or to love me the way I always wanted him to love me. I built a beautiful life without him. I married an incredible man who loves me completely and madly. I have a wonderful relationship with my mom and my sister. I have friends who are my chosen family. And that has to be enough. Because if I keep waiting for something from him that's never going to come, I'm going to miss all the good things I do have. Last week, Jason and I were talking about having kids eventually, and he asked me if I was worried that my relationship with my dad would affect the way I'd be as a mother. And I told him yes, that I'm scared of repeating patterns or burdening my children with my own trauma, but also that I know exactly the type of mother I don't want to be. And that's already something. I know I'm going to love my children unconditionally, that I'm going to be present in every moment, that they're never going to wonder if they're enough for me. And I learned that precisely from my dad, from all his mistakes, from everything he didn't do. So I guess, in a way, in the most twisted way possible, something good came out of all this. After all, I learned exactly what not to do. And that has value too.